Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I'm Tom Gross, and I will. Yes, okay. I wasn't. No, I didn't forget. I was just going to say you are flying the dragon, so I thought maybe I would introduce for you. We are out and among the dragons because we are traveling home from GenCon, the massive gaming celebration. Joining us in the car right now is our good friend and returning guest, Marc Kugler. Hello, Marc.
Hi, nice to be here again.
Excellent. It's been great hanging out with both of you all weekend long. To get things started here, we're just going to recap GenCon today and talk about our experiences.
It's kind of become a tradition for us to do that in the car on the way home from a con.
Yes.
So we apologize for the road noise, but that's part of the experience, I guess.
Right. And when you pass those giant metal dragons, it gets a little noisy as well. All right. Well, to start things off, let's talk about Trade Day. Dan, we got up early. We hit the keynote by Kathleen Mercury, which was very closely tied to our presentation,
yes,
which was integrating the school, the store, and the library into a gaming community.
Just saying, if people don't remember, I think we mentioned this before, that we got our topic approved, and then about a month or two later, they announced the keynote, and Tom came to me with just this pale face and said, it's the same topic as ours. So I'm a little nervous about that, and we did reach out to Kathleen Mercury, and she was very gracious, talked with us, Zoom meeting for about a half hour or more, just kind of talking through the topic and dividing out who would tackle which subtopics within it. And I mean, the result was we got to do exactly the presentation we wanted to. We didn't really have to forfeit any of those topics, which, again, was very kind of her to do that.
Yeah, super easy to work with. And actually, after sitting through her keynote, besides mentioning us a couple different times to promote our presentation, she did a lot of nice plate setting for us to talk about topics in our presentation. So that was really nice. So, Dan, how did you feel about the presentation as we gave that?
Well, I don't know what it says about me, probably nothing good, but it was a high point for me for GenCon. I guess to get up and be the center of attention, if you want to be completely cynical about it. But
I don't think that's that's not it.
But it was, I thought we did a very nice job gathering information that could be useful to people and organizing it in a way that made sense. And we tried to keep things moving during the presentation. And I was really enthused. I felt good about the fact that given half a chance, people were quick to participate and offer their own sort of just viewpoints on some of these topics about how to work together between game store owners and club sponsors and librarians. I think both of us were just frantically writing down these ideas that people were giving us. And it got to the point where it's whatever teacher wants when the students start talking to each other about the topic rather than through you. So that happened by the end of it. So I don't know, what were your impressions?
Yeah, I had a couple different takeaways. One of them being what you just finished with, and that was the participation of the audience and their willingness to share and help each other. Because there are some questions that I don't know that I really had a good answer for, but other people in the audience did. And I thought that was great. That's exactly what you want. The other takeaway for me is that a fourth entity kind of arose after our presentation wrapped up. I was approached by a couple different, and I know you were approached as well, by game creators.
Right.
So not the store, not a library, not a librarian or a school, but game creators. And their big interest was how to find those communities, how to get involved with those communities. And these aren't necessarily for-profit. I think we only had one real for-profit creator talking to us or entity talking to us. All the rest of them were just independent creators. They love the game. They love helping people and contributing to the community, and they just wanted to be like, I have adventures, I have systems that I want to share with people without charge. And so how do we get out there and find these different communities, or specifically schools, libraries, game stores. I think they know where to find the game stores. It's more the private, or the public entities like schools and public libraries. So that was again, just like last year, built into this, that was an unexpected audience member for the presentation. So I thought that was really cool that it gained the title, gained the interest of a new entity to the whole creating a gaming community.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Among the deluge of sensory experiences over our 5 days of GenCon, I'd forgotten about the fact that those folks had come up to us and wanted to talk. That also was very heartening.
It is so much. It is so much. And it's not so much like a bad thing. It's so much like a good thing. It's just reflecting. As we know, as educators, reflecting is key to our learning. And so this is why I like doing this on the way home, because it kind of refreshes our memories of some of the things that we might have forgotten about because, well, quite frankly, it was 5 days ago.
Yes.
How about the other seminars that you went to that day?
Right, and I can run down those quickly and we can get into the meat of GenCon itself. I picked a couple of seminars that had to do with using RPGs in the classroom, because that is something that quite frankly, I haven't found a way to do that efficiently in my classes. And to be perfectly honest, I'm still sort of the camp that it works great with junior high and grade school. And I think it has its place potentially in a creative writing class or something like that. I'm still not sold on the idea that I can do that effectively in a high school history classroom without having to take considerable time away from content.
That is understood. I've seen you in your class with that. I won't call it attempt, because you did it, but I see the time commitment. Not only the time commitment, but also there was some relevancy for the students.
Yeah.
To what is the important thing here? Is it the game, or is it the content, or is it the blend of the two, which I think is what our goal is. But I think the students have a difficult time sometimes disseminating between which is more important, the content or the game itself. And I don't know, while you were just talking about that, I was thinking possibly an answer to that is if you did like a cross-curricular activity with another department or another class outside of social studies, and there might be ways to weave some of that through where you're using more skills than just social studies. You're using maybe some English skills, possibly some math skills, things like that. But that's for a continued conversation going forward from here.
Yeah.
Can I interject here?
100%.
I mean, I know I didn't attend trade day. However, I know Dan does use games in his classes, and he does incorporate tabletop games, and GenCon's more than just role-playing games.
Yes.
So I think you do incorporate some of the ideas of GenCon into your classes, even if it's not specifically role-playing games.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I kind of forget about that. But, yeah, with diplomacy and some of those things.
That is well stated, well put. My sessions, I think there's just a couple that I'll mention. One was a storytelling game where you draw cards and you can either collaboratively or individually create a story with prompts from story cards, which I really liked. My only issue with it was that it was very heavy scholarly sort of language on the cards, and I think for anything lower than almost college, I mean, some high school students could work through it with some help. So I thought it was great intent, but just a little heavy on the scholarly. One thing I loved that they did with it was they built it around the Joseph Campbell Heroes quest.
Oh, right.
And so those were what the cards led you through those items, which I think was really cool, especially if you're in your class, you're using the hero's journey, not quest, the hero's journey. That might be a cool way to incorporate that and help students in creative writing or something like that. So that was a cool one. And I would be remiss if this isn't where we mentioned that we met with our friend Adam Watson on this day. He presented at the same time we did, but then we sort of hung out off and on throughout the first few days of the convention, but I mentioned him because he was in that session with me.
Yeah.
And we made sort of a fun story there with the collaboration of a couple other people as well. The one that really settled well with me, and I will definitely review to my notes and put something together for our game club, is a session that was how to teach a game in 3-ish steps. It was a really, really good, well thought out presentation. I think that their point in the big takeaway from their session was, besides the steps themselves, is really do not get into the weeds when you're explaining how a game works. Just tell how the game works. Do not give strategy. Do not give, well, if you did this, or if you deal with those things when you get to them. And so explain what the story is, explain the basics of how you play, and then start the game and attack things as you get to it. Now, with that knowledge in play, when we were doing demos, and Mark, you and I walked around the show floor quite a bit playing demos, I could tell, now I don't know that people were necessarily following those steps, but I could tell the people that were describing games in that very style versus people that were kind of giving us ideas of how to strategize while telling us, and it was very different in how I was processing it.
Me too. And now that you've said that, it's very clear. Maybe those natural teachers and natural at games and being able to do that. And looking at it, I think it's good to kind of let the players figure out the strategy on their own rather than feeding that to them and forcing them kind of down the same path you would go.
Yes. And I want to share one more thing from that session. I was sitting with Kathleen Mercury during that session, and she and I were kind of talking back and forth while they gave us open time to sort of work on that skill of telling this, giving directions and that. She said one of the things that she does when she's teaching a game is that she says, whoever's turn it is, you cannot talk to that person. Because when you talk to that person, you're usually telling them how to do it. And it's, in her experience, it's better for them to figure it out and struggle. They can ask questions and you can answer that, but you don't talk to the person whose turn it is. You let them process, figure it out, and in many cases make the mistake so that when they do get back to playing it again or their next turn comes around, they recognize the mistake and they've learned a thing or two about the game. So I thought that was really cool. All right. There was a social that night, and we had a good time there. Got to talk to some vendors and some creators. But like you said, Dan, let's get to the meat of the convention.
Yeah. I will just add, in case we don't get to it later, you already mentioned it, but it was nice to have sort of extended time with our friend Adam from the Kentucky Education RPG website. I mean, we know him, but it got to know him better and played some games, and it was very pleasant.
It's always
a memory from GenCon this year.
Yeah, it's always great to hang out with Adam. I laugh, I learn some things, and just have a general good time.
Yeah.
So let's start with, what are some takeaways? Like how would you compile your thoughts about GenCon as we're driving away? Just to take, when people this week at school, as we get back to the school, they know we went to GenCon and they say, well, how is GenCon? How would you explain that? Dan, we'll start with you.
I never feel like I organize. I'm going to start macro, I think.
Ooh, I like that.
My overall impression. Actually, I told you guys this, and I don't know that it says anything about me other than I am emotionally unstable, but I was ready to go. I was kind of sitting waiting for you guys to do some last minute shopping, and I was thinking, okay, I've had enough, enjoyed my time, ready to go. We got in the car, pulled out, waiting in traffic right outside the hotel where there are a bunch of stuff still going on, and I immediately was nostalgic. Like, it's gone, it's over for another year. So that's just part of the experience, I think, is missing it as soon as you walk out those doors for the last time. And the other major thing I would say is, man, it was crowded. I am so happy for the vendors and the organizers that it is so successful. But I gotta say, it made it a little bit, it impinged a bit on the enjoyment. Again, understandable. Don't think there's a solution or a workaround, but warts and all, that's kind of was my impression.
To me, in a perfect world, to deal with these sellout crowds, Again, it wasn't unmanageable. It just got to be a bit of a crunch in some of the aisles, not in some, in most of the aisles, to try to get around in the middle of the day. In a perfect world, I would love to see them open up the play hall to vendors as well, to kind of spread things out a little bit. It's just, what do you do with all those tables in the play hall, other than in a couple of years, we're going to have but Indianapolis is going to have a brand new 20 plus story, or I forget how 40 story new hotel that is attached to the convention center, that maybe there'll be some large ballrooms where they can do some workarounds with adding play space to maybe free up that vendor hall to be a little bit bigger.
I hadn't thought about the addition of what they would do with that extra space, Tom, but I think that's really, they should listen to us. They should listen to you. That'd be really smart.
I think that they should listen.
A lot of the demo play out to that space. This could be a 50,000 square foot ballroom, and then they'd have more vendor space.
Yeah, and just speaking of the crowds, and I very much the same frustrations of going down aisles and hallways and people stopping and looking around, and I understand that there's a lot to see, a lot to do, a lot to figure out, and knowing all of those kinds of things and getting that frustration when I'm trying to get from one end of the convention to the other and somebody stops right in front of me. But I like the energy of all the people, and I like to have that. It was neat to have that sellout crowd and know all of that from the get-go, but just to have a little more space to navigate through. That's where I'm at.
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
I will say, on the plus side, to the credit of the people that attend, I am sure there were short tempers, but I'll be honest, I never saw a single person get upset in this space. Every time I was jammed up, people were just very calm. They waited, they moved on, they're chatting with their friends, whatever. And that is one of the most, I don't know what the word is, the most things I appreciate most about the crowd at GenCon. Everybody's so happy to be there, and there's just this feeling of goodwill.
I never came across any cross people as well. Did you?
No, not at all. And maybe it's just GenCon, but I kind of think maybe that's just gaming in general. People understand it's going to be crowded. There are going to be these times, and yeah, you might get frustrated sometimes, but you just kind of have to deal with that and move on. And maybe that's just something gaming teaches everybody that's there, and they're able to do that.
Right, exactly. One thing, just an observation I made about the crowd and moving through the show floor was sometimes I found myself making it more of a game of like moving through the crowd down an aisle and completely forgetting why I was in that aisle. And it's just like, ooh, there's an opening, go for it. You could say, Tom, did you see this vendor in aisle 2300? And I'd say, well, I went down it, but I'm pretty sure I was just looking for openings. I was like Indianapolis Colt running back through there. Speaking of the show floor, one of the things that I love about GenCon that I really got to participate in a lot, and Marcus, most of my time was spent with you doing this, and that is stopping at the game booths and trying out demos. Marc, did you have a favorite demo that you tried?
Oh, there were several. I did buy the one game that I liked, the demo of the River Valley Glassworks.
Yeah.
That was a new release here at GenCon, and there were a couple other games I really liked, and I have them written down so that I can remember to go back to them and see later, and hopefully maybe pick them up.
The big surprise to me, I mean, we played a whole bunch. We did a Bounty Hunter, Star Wars Bounty Hunter card game. We did Mandalorian. I don't know what you call it, but it was an investigative type of a game. But I think the biggest surprise to me was we found ourselves over by the Keyforge booth. And there was an opening there, and there were cards sitting on a table, and I was like, let's jump on. Let's see what this game is all about. Because what I remember about Keyforge prior to this convention was it was really, really, there's a huge excitement around it. And then when it came out, I don't know, game stores bought in, but then either fans didn't or game stores kind of backed out. I don't know what happened, but I think it's not Magic, it's not Pokemon, and so I think people just sort of passed on it. But I used to play Magic, but I moved away from it because of the way that just people can overpower and build decks, and just that's not me. And it just it became less fun for me to play against people who were building decks. So we sat down at the Keyforge, and when they explained how that worked, and that you don't build decks, the decks are already pre-built for you, and no two decks are alike. And that they have some sort of an algorithm when they go to make new decks that aren't going to match up with another one, but the algorithm puts cards that work well together. And so every deck is going to be good. Now, he admitted, the guy that was working with us admitted that there will be better decks than others, but that's just the way life is in general. Anyway, when we played that, I found that to be wildly and surprisingly fun. And the cool thing was they gave us promo decks, but they're full decks. And so I'm looking forward to playing that game a little bit. And I could even see myself buying a Keyforge deck or two in the future.
Yeah, and I've never played Magic because it's always kind of been one of those things I've seen what people do when they buy cards and they go out and try to get the best cards and build. And like, I don't know what I'm doing well enough to do that, and I don't want to spend the time and investment to buy the cards to do that, where I'm just going to get beaten down over and over and over again. That doesn't sound fun to me. So this is a much better way for me, where I can just take a deck of cards, everybody's on a pretty equal playing field, and you just get to play.
I thought that was a lot of fun. Any other thoughts on the show floor experiences, Dan? Did you play any demos, or what did you do when you were out on the show floor?
I wander around by myself, and I just tend to listen in. I don't tend to jump into demos. So honestly, I just sort of did the usual. I walked the artist alley. I like looking at the art. I don't have a lot of space to add more to my walls, so I didn't buy any. That's fun. I do enjoy, although I don't think I really have a need for a chainmail bikini top, but some of the things for sale in the clothing, like the medieval clothing and cosplay little stores they've got set up in the middle of the vendor hall, it is fun to just look at the things that they come up with, and it's pretty impressive. Just leather boots, leather garments, little potion bottles, and whatever else that you need for your cosplay, build, they've got. And it's fun to look at.
I missed the chainmail bikini store. I never saw that.
I didn't see that either. I saw a lot of leather stores, like you said.
Yeah.
But those are the main things I think on the show floor. And of course, I'm always a sucker for the dice. They've got everything from ChessX, a couple bucks gets you a set, to sets that were well over $100 at some of the more upscale places. So that was fun just to see the variety.
I was going to say, you were talking about all the demos, and I even this morning, before I had my last game, went in and did my very last demo, and it was a new game that's not even out yet. I didn't even know it. It was that Flickering Stars.
Oh, you got to that.
I did, and it's a pre-order. And it was it's a fun game. It's a little bit of it's Flickering Stars because you flick your ships around and collect stuff, and you have to make sure you can flick and not flick too hard, or all of that. So
just remember, this is a family show.
It is. But no, it was it's a lot of fun, and I can see where you get that, and you get a group, 3 or 4 people, and it'd be a good time.
I don't know how you couldn't notice that game. Their room was super cool. They had a black background on the back wall from when you're walking by it, and it was either lit or it just had really shiny stars, like a star field in the back. It was really slick marketing.
Yeah, and with bright colors for the font and everything. They did a really nice job.
So we talked about the show floor. We talked about demos that we played on the show floor or in each company's room. What about things that you signed up for? Dan, I know you had some ups and downs with some of the things that you signed up to take part in. And when I say signing up for things, you would, before the show, you can buy tickets to either play through games, to get more than just a demo. You get a one shot if it's an RPG, or to play through a game. But you can also sign up for seminars and panel sessions and stuff like that. So Dan, what are some highlights or lowlights for you?
Well, I as I was telling you folks, when you sign up on the website, you rank your preferred order, and so anybody can pick whatever they want, and then they sort of randomize, sort of by lottery, but your first priority ones you've got a better chance of getting, and then they tell you, okay, these are the ones from the ones you requested, these are the sessions you got into. And I didn't get into very many, and they're very upfront. They say, we are adding sessions all the time, you should check back. And I just never did, and so I really didn't get it. I didn't do too many sessions at all. I played one demo game I was sort of interested in. It was billed as sort of a cinematic horror RPG, which I took to mean it would be sort of like Cthulhu, and it was. I'll be a little blunt here. It felt a little bit like a bait and switch, because games that are being developed, that's where the first exposure test hall is where you go if you want to sit and play a game that's still being developed. This was one of those games, but it was not billed as that. So, you sit down and you're kind of expecting I'll try a game that I might like well enough to buy. Well, no, it's not actually published or anywhere near being published. It's just, here's a game I'm developing, you're going to play it. So that was a little disappointing. It was fine. It was an entertaining game. But other than that, really the only other thing I'll mention is my yearly diplomacy experience. So that was very fun. It was kind of exciting. That game, listen to the show for a while, I bring up diplomacy quite a bit. It's one of my favorite games to play. It's much older. It's probably 30, 40 years old. And there's been a bit of a resurgence, I think, because they had to add more tables for it this year. They got a lot more people involved. When I was standing around waiting to play in the tournament, they were going to be running introductory games at the same time. And we were all just jumbled together before they sorted us. Every single person at the table I was waiting at was a brand new player just going to try it out, which was sort of exciting to me that, more people are getting involved in this. It's maybe it'll get a little better known. So I did that. I played the game. It was exactly what I was hoping for, in that I did pretty well. Then basically to go on to the finals of this tournament, they out of all of the different games going, they decide by nation. You play a nation in diplomacy. So whichever France player had the highest score at the end is the one that moves on to the final. So technically you could win your table. If you didn't have a higher score than somebody at another table, you didn't go on.
Oh, okay.
So what that means is that the players that are truly trying to get into the tournament, they're going to wait until the last couple turns, and then they just stab everybody, trying to get every last point that they can in the game. And I didn't really care about going on to the final anyway. I was just kind of enjoying it. So I allied myself with some people. We had fun. There's a guy that tried to stab me in the back but didn't do it quite right, so I was able to make life difficult for him. And in the end, one of my allies just took all my stuff. But I was fine with that. So, good experience.
Can I ask a question, Dan?
Sure.
I've never played diplomacy. Is it along the lines of a social deduction kind of game, or what's...
The name actually says it all. There are no dice. There's no luck at all. You have to. You're trying to expand your country and take over the board, or as much of it as you can. But you do that by negotiating and making deals and working together with other people to push somebody else out. But you're never sure if the person you're dealing with is going to actually do what they say they do. Entirely up to them. And so for all you know, they're making a deal behind your back, or for all they know, you're doing the same thing. And so it really is, you are matching wits in the purest sense. It's like a little like chess, I guess, in in that sense. Only you don't really, in chess, you can see exactly what the other person is doing as he does it. In this, you can't.
Okay. I mean, I know there's been a big uptick lately in social games like that. And so that makes sense to me that that's having a resurgence right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's a great game, and I love that you are so invested in it. I mean, you even use it in your classroom, and I've witnessed some of that fun entertainment. But as it's been well documented on this show, this game involves a lot of trust, and I am a sucker when it comes to trusting people, and this game is just not for me. But another possible reason that the game has seen a resurgence is we were talking about it's shifted owners of who has the rights to it. And I did a little bit of investigating today. It's Renegade Games who has the rights to that game now.
Okay.
So I wonder if they put a little bit more marketing push behind it this year, maybe put more volunteers or paid employees into the promoting of it and the demos on it. I don't know. That's complete speculation on my part, but I am glad that it has a resurgence because I think it is a really cool game. And even for someone like me, it teaches some lessons.
Yeah, I think so. I've heard that story several times, and
everybody has.
Yeah, but Tom's still pretty trusting even after that.
So how about you, Mark? What is something that you signed up for that really stood out to you?
I played several games, and I had a really good time with it. One of them that I really wanted to get into, I was able to. And that was DCC, or Dungeon Crawl Classics. And I know you've talked to somebody from the publisher way back early. And
yeah, Jen Brinkman from DCC.
And it was the first time I got to play in one of their funnels. I've used the funnel before with the group of kids at school, but this was a fun time going through, experiencing it from the player side, seeing all of that, how the dice work. It was a great time, and working through that and just not getting too invested in any characters to start with, because most of them get killed off pretty quickly. And I lost. We were all given 4, and I lost 2 of them, I think, within the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game.
That's what I love about that game.
I wasn't the first to lose a character. There was somebody, the guy read the opening script, and it kind of went through, and there's a luck score in DCC games, and whoever had the lowest luck, they fell in the hole first thing. So there was somebody, game hadn't even really started yet, and they already lost a character.
Wait, so it was part of the opening script?
We will kill one of you right now.
Yes, that's basically what it is. Pick whichever one of you is the least lucky, and you're dead. So,
you know, if you get a character of 3rd or 4th level in DCC, there is love there. There is connection and love to that character because they have survived. They are survivors.
Absolutely, and you know, it's completely random in how you get your stats. You don't get to roll the 4d6 and throw one out. You just roll dice, and whatever you get is whatever you get as you're running down the stat block. You might end up with a character that has 3 or just a little bit, 3 or 4 in a strength, or 3 or 4 in charisma, and that's what you get.
So in the things that I signed up for, I was happy with everything. I was not disappointed. I checked out some board games for our game club. The tops there for me is Fire Tower. That I played that this morning, and that's a fun game. Easy to learn and easy to find yourself going, no. So that was cool. I mean, they burned down my tower, but my highlight of the items that I signed up for was most definitely Thursday morning, 8 a.m. I signed up for a Starfinder role play for 5 hours. And Mark, you and I played Starfinder last year. It was a good experience. But this one that I did this year was it really sold me on the game. Our game master was super chill and really good about explaining how things worked. And even in some places he'd say, guys, I just wanted to let you know, I'm kind of making this part basic because I want to have fun. You know, I want you guys to have fun. But he said that there are levels of difficulty at this point, and he was talking specifically about the space space battle in the ship and stuff, whatnot. But I was really sold on that. It encouraged me to go spend some money with Paizo to build my Starfinder catalog a little bit more. So I had a ton of fun doing that.
Did you have any lowlights?
I don't think so. I mean, probably my least favorite of them is the G.I. Joe deck building game, but I would play it again. It just, of all of them, it probably was kind of the slowest and maybe for me, hardest to figure out. But no, I mean, really the highlight for me, Fire Tower was great, but the highlight was the game you bought, which is Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Well, I really enjoyed playing that in the Czech Games Hall and doing that there and learning that. And you played not the same one as me, but
no.
My highlight with that, I really enjoyed playing it at night after we were done with just, well, Dan was there one night and played, and then Adam was there the other night. And
that's the first year we've done that, is gone to the actual open play hall. That's another sort of core part of the GenCon experience that was a first time for us.
Yeah, and actually that was going to be one of my intangibles of GenCon, was discovering. It wasn't even really discovering. We know it existed, but we'd never taken part in it. And it goes back to where you get your hotel, I think, because we ended up staying in that open play ballroom till 1:30, both 2 nights.
Yeah.
And then last night we didn't even get to play in there because it was so crowded and packed.
Yeah.
To me, that is, you're right, Dan. It is, to me, it's what my vision of GenCon always was before I went to GenCon. And now it's kind of become an ingrained part of, like, I look forward to next year buying a new game, or even bringing a game that I've hardly played at home that I've always wanted to, and I just have never really taken the time to figure it out, is bringing that to that open play test hall, or not test hall, but the open play room, and just sitting down with you guys and Adam or other people that we've been meeting at GenCon and just playing games.
But it doesn't have to just be that. I really enjoyed, you said last night we couldn't get that table, so we went out in a hallway and just took one of the coffee tables and played on the coffee table.
Yeah.
And we were not the only ones. They were all over any of the hotels, hallways over in the convention center.
My favorite was when we went to the City Circle Mall, I think is what it's called.
Oh.
And somewhere just deep into the mall is the food court, and there was a group playing at a food court table, just had their game out.
Yeah, the food court was closed. There was nothing was open. It just, they were sitting there at the table playing games.
That is the culture.
That, just having that and being a part of that and seeing it everywhere in that probably 4, 5, 6 square blocks area downtown was just, that's a lot of fun.
So we focused on a lot talking about playing games. We focused on the vendor hall and all of that. But GenCon brings other layers of what I would call enjoyment, but other layers of experience. And so I'm kind of curious. What I mean by that is I don't even want to go there because I'm curious to hear what you guys say. So is there something non-game or vendor hall related that had an impact on you this year, Dan?
Well, I think what I've learned about myself, in spite of the fact that I am a diehard introvert, the thing that really makes GenCon special to me is the connections that we've started to make. And I realize that is honestly probably the biggest part of what makes me excited to be there, is getting to see people that we wouldn't see elsewhere, or just getting to see them in that environment. So we already mentioned Adam. It was great to see him. There was a friend of the show that on Instagram goes by Bucky Productions that reached out to us and said, "Hey, if you got a second, love to talk to you." That was really, really fun just to get to know him a little bit. And he gifted us with one of his, if you haven't followed him on Instagram, it's pretty cool. I don't know if you call it found object art or what it is, but he'll take objects that he finds and purchases and reassemble them into minis and then paints them up. And it's pretty impressive what he can do. So he gave us one of those pieces that he worked on. That was really amazing. Our friend from near home, Ryan Calhoun, is just every year we see him at GenCon, there's another huge leap in what he is actually accomplishing in his career. So he already has invented a line of mini paints, and he's now invented a new and patented a new material to speed up the process of actually making minis.
Yes.
And they come out much more durable, but still very detailed. So that was really exciting to hear about all that. Another friend from home, Dan Crawford, was working his butt off, making deals for Magic cards. I probably missed a few, but that was really exciting to get to take part in.
Yeah, we got to visit with Michael and Andrew at Limitless Adventures,
right,
and see all of their materials that they have for sale and their contributions to role-playing games, as well as talk a little bit about their new Kickstarter that is out right now for non-combat encounters, I believe is what that is for. So it's fun to see them. On another level, I had the opportunity to visit with Michael Whitwer, who is co-author of Art and Arcana, the cookbook, the D&D cookbooks. He has a fiction book out, Vivian Van Tassel. So it was fun to catch up with him a little bit. And I got to meet with him Ben Riggs, historian, John Peterson, historian, David Ewald, historian, all with published books on the history of Dungeons & Dragons and role-playing games. And so that was a ton of fun as well. I love the connections that we make through the podcast, but also being able to see face-to-face everyone at GenCon. Marc, how about you? A sort of non-tangible or just an experience outside of the actual gameplay and show floor?
Well, does it have to be outside of the show floor?
Nope.
Okay, because for me, it happened on the show floor.
Yes.
And it was meeting Marc from Palladium Books, and we were there, and Tom, I know, took a picture of me, and I'd played some D&D early, but then my first long campaign, I would say, was part of the Rifts series from Palladium Books, and I just going to their stand, opening up the book, looking through and having the, all the nostalgia and all the flood of memories that came back from all that time that I spent with my friends from high school, way back then, being able to, then say something to Marc about it and talk to him about it. And, that was just this neat experience.
It was so cool to see how excited you were when you saw that Rifts book, that I had to get my phone out and take a picture as you were flipping through that, because I don't know. I think I would probably go so far as to say I experienced you being giddy.
Probably as giddy as I'm going to get. So.
Yes. But that was really cool to be there and witness that and have a picture. I'm sure if you're listening or viewing this on YouTube, that there'll be that picture.
Yes.
With you just rediscovering Rifts. And I think it's super cool that today, Sunday morning, you went and you bought the book.
I did. I have no idea. I am sure that my parents or brother or somebody got rid of that long ago, and so it's still there. It still looks the same.
Yeah. I think the thing that I really enjoyed that's a part of the show, but it's not part of gaming necessarily, is I'm going to package a couple of things together here because of their location, they kind of tie together. And that will be, they have Pinball Alley that's in the kind of the hallway that leads to Lucas Oil Stadium. And then I will say the food trucks in the block party area. I don't know. It's just, to me, that's just a joyous place to kind of relax, try some food that you wouldn't ordinarily.
Become a pierogi lover.
That's right. The pierogi truck was sweet.
Well, I think he's happiest just because he finally found one that sells ice cream.
Right? Oh my gosh. Thursday, Friday. I'm like, if we finished, I was like, is there any ice cream around here? Marc, you and I even like walked to the downtown city looking for an ice cream place. We couldn't find one. And then to know that there was an ice cream truck there the whole time. Didn't find that out until Saturday night. But nonetheless, it's a great place to catch up. It's a great place where we got to sit down with Adam, and we got to sit down, just the three of us in cases, to be able to just sort of reflect on the day, talk about the fun things. I mean, the people watching is great as well. Some people in costume, some people.
Cosplay was just
so
amazing.
Yeah, and then just getting back to one of the things I said last year, probably on this very show that we recapped, was I'm going to play pinball next year. And so on Thursday, I think it was Wednesday night of trade day, I bought a card for $20 to play pinball for the rest of the show. And I did a game, about 2-3 games every day, just because that was something that was really on my list last year. And it was fun watching everybody play pinball. Adam was playing pinball. Marc, you were playing pinball. Dan, I didn't know if you played any pinball.
I didn't. I like pinball. I just, for whatever reason, I just wasn't feeling it this year. So I just let you guys do that.
You got to go with what you want to do when you're at GenCon, because there's so much. And if you are doing things that you don't want to do, then that means you're missing out on a lot of stuff that you do want to do. Any final thoughts on our GenCon experience from 2024?
No, it is amazing, the variety of just fun, joyful activities that are all just packed into that one space, and that was 4 days or 5 days for us. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, I don't really have. I mean, I'm exhausted, tired. I am in many ways glad to be going home so that I can just get a full night's sleep. But I'll miss it tomorrow, and I'll wish to get back up and be able to go there again.
Speaking of going there again, the dates are out, and I don't have those in front of me, but I know it's the same week. So, but check the website of GenCon. The dates are up. Mark it off in your calendar if you've not been there, because this is a show you really don't want to miss. And as we learned this year, the badges do sell out. This is the first year that has ever happened. Yes. So I don't think it's going to be the last time.
No,
it will happen.
And I would put in one last plug. If you are an educator or librarian or a store owner and you haven't done trade day, I do think it's worth doing at least once. It's fun to be among gamers, or, someone who shares two of your,
yes,
both your career and your passion for gaming. I think makes it worthwhile. And it's every year we've been, it's gotten more and more fleshed out, and there's more and more reasons to go. I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the most interesting vendors are there and set up a small table at trade day itself, so you get a little bit of a mini vendor hall to kind of go through without all the crowds. And, that social mixer, a chance to demo more games, all of that is just, I think it's worth doing at least once.
100%. I think it's a valuable piece if you are into gaming and an educator or a librarian, or even if you're not into it but your students are. It's a great place to meet people, like-minded people, and learn from them. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm with you, Marc. I'm tired. I am ready to go home. We start school this week, so it'll be nice to get like you said, a nice full night rest in your own bed. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see my family, to see how their weekend has been, and share the spoils of victory, of treasure that I'm bringing home. So with all that said, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to our GenCon recap. If you were at GenCon, we'd love to hear your experiences, the fun things that you did. We'll share them on the show to kind of keep that enjoyment and the spirit of GenCon going. To do that, you can email us at teachersinthedungeon@gmail.com, or you can join us on the social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, Teachers in the Dungeon. We are on X at Dungeon Teachers, and then we also have YouTube that I mentioned earlier, and that is under Teachers in the Dungeon as well. So, for Marc Kugler and Dan Ream, I'm Tom Gross. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s.